Tell me some of the obstacles that you ran into and how you dealt with it.
You know, I don't think I thought of myself as a pioneer at all. I thought of Barbara Walters as the pioneer. To me, I was just a young girl kind of putting one foot in front of the other. And but I'll say this, a friend in passing, I thought I was going to be a doctor when I grew up because my dad was a doctor. Never had a thought of going into television. A friend of the family said in passing, you know, they're going to have to put a lot more women on television because the FCC is now putting pressure on, and you'd probably be good at that. And I could have said, oh, thanks, and gone home and never thought about it again. But I went home and I picked up the phone and I called the news director of the NBC station in Sacramento, California, where I live, asked for an interview, went in with my little questions, like what's the future of broadcasting, how do you think women are going to be in the picture, and after about 6 minutes, he said, well, obviously you know how to do an interview. And he took me down into the studio and auditioned me, and I got an internship out of it. In fact, he really said, I think you have promise, but we don't have any jobs.
Right.
And so I said, okay, thank you. And I was walking out of the building, and the weatherman, the weatherman had been back behind the set getting his maps ready for the day. He followed me to the door, and he said, there are some stations around the country putting weather girls on, and I'd like to train you to be the first weather girl in Sacramento. And I paused for a moment because, to be perfectly candid, I thought, I hate science.
Meteorology.
I mean, meteorology? That sounds like the most boring thing in the world. But thank God I heard that the door opened.
Right.
And I knew that was a way to go through the door. So I said yes. And I, 6 months later, I was on the air doing radio weather reports. And, 6 months earlier, I didn't know a cirrus cloud from a cumulus cloud. I knew nothing. But I just jumped in and learned and soaked up everything. And that's what I always tell young people to do, Don't limit your possibilities by what you think you might be able to do, but just go for it and use your talents. Find your talents.
Right.
And even if you go into a field and then you find out you don't like it, I just think young people today can't just be expecting everything to come their way. That's the journey. It's the journey.
Barbara Walters, though, gave you some advice. Because when you first started, they weren't giving you the best interviews. They were giving you the light, you can do certain things, you're limited, no hard news.
The woman stories I got.
Exactly, the female stories. And yet, Barbara Walters told you something, and you followed her lead.
I was so nervous to interview her the first time. She was my mentor. She was the only one on television, really, as I was going into the business. And she said, don't fight City Hall here. Don't go and insist that you get the big interviews because you're not going to. They're not ready to do it. But my advice to you is to take every little piece that they'll give you and make it shine. You make every one of those pieces shine, and you'll endure here and you'll rise to the top. And when you finally find your place and they respect you for what you can do, then go out and get your own interviews. And I totally followed her advice, and she was right. And something else that's kind of interesting? All those stories that I was relegated to, the woman stories, health, education, raising lifestyle. Families, parenting, lifestyle, medicine. I loved those stories.
Right.
I loved what I was doing. I mean, I had activists, write me and say, we've fought hard for women's roles, and you're taking all those little stories. And I would write them back and say, I loved my job. And I did like those stories. And after I left Good Morning America, if you look at all the programming that I've done, all the health shows, I do media campaigns for every hospital and major health organization in this country, American Heart, American Cancer Society, American Academy of Pediatrics. And those stories that I was supposedly relegated to, they really helped mold and shape my career. I found what I loved. I found what I had a passion for. I found where I could make my little mark on the world, where maybe I could impact other people. And that was the journey I was set on. And I loved my journey.